There are a slew of powerful Pokemon in the world, but for some reason, there are a chunk of them that have simply evolved to look like the food that we eat. Pokemon like Appletun that has become a walking apple pie. Sinistea, who entices others to drink from its cup. And of course, the classic Vanillite taking on the form of ice cream. Why would they entice our stomachs in this way? Are they secretly predators, parasites, or something else entirely? After working alongside the chefs of the Pokemon world, I can now bring to you why these Pokemon have evolved to be eaten. Howdy there, I'm Krilly, connecting the world through Pokemon. Long have people criticized, questioned, and made claims about food Pokemon and their strange appearance within this world of Pokemon. And today we'll be focusing completely on them. Others like Miltank don't count, or I'm not talking about them today, because we actively turn them into food. Not that they evolved naturally to look like a swirling ice cream cone or living bread. So actually, speaking of ice cream, let's just start right off the bat with Vanillite. A Pokemon that many people have tried claiming is a parasite since it looks like ice cream, but it's time to immediately put that to rest. For if we just look at Vanillish's Pokemon Black Dex entry, it states snowy mountains are this Pokemon's habitat. During an ancient ice age, they moved to southern areas. To follow, its Moon Dex entry states, this Pokemon has existed since the Ice Age. It controls particles of ice, freezes its opponents, and then shatters them with a headbutt. Kind of mortifying, really, but, you know, gotta defend yourself somehow. So, any claims that this Pokemon has worked to mimic our food in efforts to be eaten would then be wrong, factually. And if this line of Pokemon were to ever be eaten, then it would simply die. As we see with some other Pokemon like Cryogonal, their real bodies aren't exactly what we see. They can melt and come back without dying whatsoever. Meanwhile, if the Vanillite line melts, they are noted to permanently pass away. So maybe eating your ice cream Pokemon would be a pretty bad idea. So then we might still ask, how is it born? And like many different Pokemon, but not all of them, Vanillite simply just suddenly spawns into existence in a way known as spontaneous generation. Vanillite are born from icicles that are hit by morning sunlight and wish not to melt. Wishing in the Pokemon world is a powerful thing, but this bit of info is actually significant, because the entire line does spend time in cold areas with good sunlight while drinking plenty of water. Speaking as someone who gets 5-foot icicles from his roof that I have to regularly prevent, these icicles only happen on the side with the morning sun. It's just cold enough in the morning while the sun provides heat to melt the icicles just enough that when it stays cold and they are no longer in direct sunlight after the morning, that the water refreezes towards the bottom and they simply grow rather than completely melting away. And this is actually how Vanillite is able to evolve into Vanillish and Vanillux without ever having to fight a single other Pokemon. There are natural evolutions throughout Pokemon in this way. Though there is one Pokemon that is noted to be a natural predator of this line, and that is Glalie. Though this is just because Glalie directly notes that it loves eating frozen food. Its favorite food, though, actually being Pokemon composed entirely of ice, like Vanillite and its line. Even when Vanillish protects itself, its evolution, it is noted to never kill their opponent. Instead, they spare their lives after freezing them because it is a kind-natured creature. So, was the whole part about it shattering its opponents with a headbutt not killing them? I don't know. Last I checked, if someone is frozen solid in the first place, they die, but this is Pokemon, and cryogenic freezing is a thing, I guess, so we can give it a pass. That breath, by the way, can reach temperatures as low as negative 148 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 100 Celsius, well beyond standard flash freezing, but not the most extreme levels of cryogenic flash freezing. Imagine thinking you could get a bite of an ice cream cone and it just turns you into a popsicle for something else to eat, like Glalie. It's pretty ironic, but people have also legitimately eaten these, or almost rather, eaten these Pokemon before. A news report exists within Unova for exactly this moment and event. Unova News. This is so exciting. We're speaking to a woman who actually saw a living ice cream cone. Mrs. C states, I wanted a Castelia cone no matter what, and I came all the way in from the countryside to get one. Then I waited in a long line and finally bought the ice cream. When I was just about to take a nibble, the ice cream moved. It startled me, so I dropped it and it ran away. Could that have been a Pokemon? So even when given the opportunity, this line of Pokemon actively avoids being eaten. And of course, this tells us that ice cream in Unova, more specifically the Castelia cone, is specifically designed after Vanillite, which is a little messed up, but this is also the world where people sell Drifloon balloons to kids, so what did I expect, right? Also, not that eating these Pokemon would feel good at all. You're literally just eating snow and ice without any flavor at all, and if you manage to eat a bunch of them, you're just going to dehydrate yourself. Moving on to its evolution, Vanillish are smaller in hotter regions and elusive on warm, sunny days, and although it is possible to refreeze its body despite melting, this process can leave its appearance warped. This is how we get that final form of Vanillux, now having 2 brains as the Pokédex states. I don't know what they measured or how they found out it has a brain or what that brain looks like, but I am curious. But now it also has a straw for whatever reason, potentially going through that brain, making us question it all over again, but we still know it came before ice cream, so there has to be a function for this straw, quote unquote, right? Well, according to the Legends ZA Dex, if both heads get angry simultaneously, this Pokemon expels a blizzard from its horn, burying everything in snow. You might question why it says horn, but if we take away all the snow from this Pokemon and make it bald, we do see that it is a part of the body much like a horn, just entirely composed of ice. And for note, the creator of this Pokemon, James Turner, has also created art of these Pokemon without any snow on their heads, which we do see further in the manga as well. So it's really nice to actually see a little bit more of how they're supposed to look without that extra topping. And ultimately, our first Pokemon is already busted. It didn't evolve to look like food, but rather we made food that looked like it for whatever reason. If we look briefly at real world history, there are claims that the ice cream cone was made entirely out of circumstance and necessity after there were no more cups or bowls available. Scoop it up and plop it down and boom, we have the iconic original ice cream. This is pretty cool because nature itself, as it created this Pokemon, and as it does in real life, often takes the most efficient route for their own energy. So in some way, the ice cream cone formation that this line takes on must be efficient for their overall energy, growth, and evolution long term. Swirlix only eats sweets, which makes its fur as sticky as cotton candy while also making it smell like cotton candy altogether. This immediately raises questions, as it does specifically state that it has fur in the Pokédex. Between this, the sharp teeth, and the paw-like feet that it is shown to have in artwork, despite always floating around, we have a cotton candy dog on our hands. This actually explains why its name is Petapafu, giving us a combination of pero pero, the sound of licking they use in Japan, while also being a pun for perro, or dog, in Spanish. And also I just fell into whatever accents that I have with Spanish, whatever. And of course, this makes it a literal fairy dog, as it is a fairy type Pokemon. This is otherwise known as the Kushi, and I will throw that word on screen because it is not said out loud in the same way that it is actually spelled. At least not how you might expect it if you don't speak the language. These, like many fairy creatures, are associated with the color green, but this dog's shaggy coat is said to be so dark it looks almost black, already separating us from, our Pokemon. If that wasn't enough to recognize it by, though, its sheer size will catch your attention. Said to be as large as a young bull, it often leaves footprints the size of dinner plates on sandy beaches. Other characteristics to look for is the Kushi's tail, which will either be braided or curled over itself. You might think that seeing the beast would be frightening enough, but the real danger is when you hear it. Mostly silent while hunting for humans to take down to the fairy realm. It will let out 3 loud barks once it locks onto its prey. If you hear 1 bark, you know the fairy dog is coming for you. A second one means you don't have long left to make it safely indoors. And then the 3rd bark means your time is up. Though our little fairy dog here does not follow the same behavior, instead we can find it on the route just outside the berry farm in Kalos, or hanging around the berry stands within Lumio City itself. This is then how it is able to naturally get its fill of sugar, by just eating ridiculous amounts of berries. In fact, it is noted to eat its own weight in sugar every single day, being 7.7 pounds or 3.5 kilograms. To put that into perspective, it's eating more than my chihuahua's weight in sugar. I know, I just woke you up from a nap just for a video. I'm so sorry. I apologize for that, but this is how I get to pay for your food, right? Yeah. Alright, you go back now. I'm sorry. But that still doesn't explain why it evolved to have such sticky fur, unless we look at the fur of real dogs, and more specifically, the Bichon Frise, which just means curly-haired dog. Then we add in that dogs naturally release sebum, a waxy, oily substance produced by sebaceous glands in their skin to keep their coats healthy, waterproof, and protected from pathogens. though they may also release nutrients through these processes as well, and with such an excessive diet of sugar, this would be Swirlix's way of balancing out its body, which makes its fur sticky. This isn't as crazy as it seems either. After all, even our bodies will change if we eat excessive amounts of certain foods as well, changing to be more orange, for example, if we eat too many carrots. But just to be 100% clear, I mean, you'd have to be eating ridiculous amounts of carrots every single day. Same thing goes for other foods. I think if you eat a ridiculous amount of beets, you can get like a reddish purple hue to your skin. After all, you are what you eat. So between curly hair and releasing a ton of sugar through that hair or fur, Swirlix's fur is just sticking to itself time and time again to incidentally create this fluffy, cotton candy-like appearance to itself. Meaning once again, we have a Pokemon that just incidentally looks like food, but that can't be the same for Slurpuff, can it? After all, we literally hand it a whipped dream to evolve it with a trade. Well, Slurpuff has an exceptionally keen sense of smell that is 100 million times stronger than that of a human. This allows it to distinguish even the faintest of smells and assist pastry chefs in cooking. Slurpuff can tell a person's mental and physical condition by taking in their scent. Its fur contains a lot of air, making it light and soft to the touch. So, first and foremost, they doubled down on it being a dog, without a doubt now, with that sense of smell. In addition, as we know it, dogs are able to use their sense of smell to tell when something might be wrong with someone medically, though it is a case-by-case basis. Dogs have about 300 million olfactory receptors, good ol' in that nose, compared to humans being roughly 6 million, giving them a sensitivity up to 10 to 100,000 times greater, giving us why Slurpuff's sense of smell is also 100,000 times greater than our own. When you're ill, your body also releases volatile organic compounds, VOCs, through breath, sweat, and skin. Volatile doesn't mean they're going to explode. Volatile means that they just kind of go away effectively really easily. These VOCs change depending on the illness. For example, cancer, diabetes, or infections produce distinct chemical profiles. Dogs can detect these shifts, sometimes even before you notice symptoms. This would make Slurpuff one of many incredible service animals within the world of Pokemon, and one of these days I really need to make a video all about that, because I've been sitting on it for way too long. Back on track though, as for Slurpuff's body, it is very airy to the touch. It is specifically also known as the meringue Pokemon. Meringue is a sweet, airy confection created by whipping egg whites with sugar until stiff peaks form, which denatures the protein ovalbumin, and traps air to create a light texture. And effectively all we've done is transform Swirlix into this, evolving it into Slurpuff and then throwing a cherry on top. So once again, we're the ones that have induced its transformation, with none of them appearing naturally in the wild within the main games. I'd like to think that through the description and understanding of its evolution, all we've basically done is help clean up its sugary body, which is now no longer sticky, but still something that retains all that airiness within it. The entire Applin line is both very straightforward and very strange all at the same time, because for starters, the real Applin is the worm in the apple, which is a great pun in my opinion, as it's both a W-O-R-M worm and a W-Y-R-M worm. But something we find out about this Pokemon is that the apple is prevented from rotting thanks to Applin's bodily fluid, which also strengthens the fruit's rind. Well, what could this bodily fluid be? And, well, it's just acid. Something that provides antimicrobial properties while preserving the rind of the fruit, assuming the right balance is kept. When we give it a sour apple, it evolves into Flapple. The apple breaks open. This is because sour tastes are typically the result of acids. Stronger sour tastes, stronger acids, meaning too much acid is in the apple and it eats away at the rind, so unlike our following evolutions, Flapple actively hunts for its food. But when we give our Applin a sweet apple, we get Appletun, who is a living apple pie and an amazing Pokemon. This of course lines up with how traditional apple pies are made. You should take it from me, pie is my favorite food. Which is that you use tart apples to then balance out the sweetness of an apple pie and give better flavors overall. But now we have a problem, because in the past, children would peel the skin off of Appletun's back and eat it as a sweet treat. Kinda messed up, not gonna lie. I fully expect some wild children of the corn stuff to be happening while Appletun is fighting for its life. But as it turns out, Appletun has actively developed this evolution in order to function as a predator. No, it isn't eating children, and while it does attract a Lechonk to it, Appletun isn't eating that pig either. Rather, as it does in all other forms within this evolutionary line, it does eat bugs. It consistently emits a nectarous smell from its body, which of course attracts bugs to it, which it can then cover them in sticky nectar in order to trap them and eat them alongside the other piece of food that makes up the majority of its diet, sweet apples. So those sweet apples continue to provide it with sugar that it can use as an attractant and a weapon all the same. This process is actually called aggressive mimicry. In this form of mimicry, the predator imitates a harmless or beneficial signal, such as a food source, apple pie, mating call, no, or even a harmless model organism to lure prey closer before capturing it. Then of course we can talk about Applin, a Pokemon we helped create by giving Applin a new home covered in a much higher level of sugar thanks to the syrupy apple. This results in not one, but two of these worms now being able to live inside of the apple. They are capable of producing syrup, which they use to coat their apple in layers. This syrup has a fragrant scent that captivates Applin's opponents. They can use the syrup to engulf their opponents and hinder them, giving us a similar level of aggressive mimicry as we would get with Appletun. But what if we took it a little bit further? Because if these Pokemon are constantly generating syrup instead of, only releasing acid, they can effectively create a much larger home for themselves. And this is exactly what happens. Not only do they excessively create syrup and attract more of their kind, but they grow to such an immense size that the original apple is pinned onto the spike of the leader's head, the largest of their kind in their apple, while they've created a new apple entirely out of syrup for them to live in that is also preserved in that acid still. Now there are 7 of them living inside, producing syrup bombs, and occasionally all aligning their attacks and tempers to attack with their powerful fickle beam. Considering they can all hide inside their new apple, even in this form, we found our first Pokemon that mimics food in order to attract their prey. Congratulations to this line of Pokemon. Let's just be happy though that they have no intention of actively hunting us or using their aggressive mimicry, to lure us in as a meal. Unfortunately, I spoke a bit too soon because immediately we get to talk about Sinistea, a ghost that picks and chooses which teacups and tea to possess in an attempt to drain the life from those that dare to drink from it. But I question how good of a job it really does due to a major detail. Sinistea doesn't technically possess the cup, it technically possesses the mold in the cup. We find this out because collectors dedicate considerable time and effort to prepare the perfect tea and teacup, hoping that a Sinistea will come and possess their collections, leaving them out for excessive amounts of time. This then also explains why they can be naturally encountered in places. The swirl pattern on Sinestea's purple body also serves as a weakness. Should it get stirred, the swirl will disappear and cause it to get dizzy. As a small side before I explain that, its name in German is Fatality, which is absolutely phenomenal. As a pun, I might actually need to look at Pokemon names in other languages to see just which ones are better and talk about that. Though, despite all of this, because of it being a moldy tea, hence the stirring making it weak, and despite it being incredibly patient, most of Sinestea's opportunities end up being short, as it tastes so bad that it is spat out immediately. No swallowing the tea, no life absorbing for you. But as it evolves into Polteageist, it continues to try anyway, and it does improve. The black tea that composes Polteageist's body has a distinctly delicious flavor, but can cause strong chills when swallowed, and may also induce indigestion, stomach aches, and even death if drunk in excess, which again makes me immediately think of mold. Only a trainer it trusts is allowed to drink its tea. There are even gourmets who drink Polteageist tea every day, showing no fear of the side effects, though that doesn't mean that they don't experience any of the side effects. Like, I'm not afraid of drinking upwards of, 4 cups of coffee, whatever I can do to get to 400 milligrams if I need it in a day, but it doesn't mean I'm immune to the effects, so I try to stick to 200 milligrams at most, which I guess these effects might even just be the same exact effects we'd see when you drink too much black tea anyhow. Though again, Polteageist can still weaponize this as it attacks by shooting the tea at its enemy's mouth. They live in hotels and restaurants, disguising themselves as tableware and infecting leftover tea to create more of their own kind, allowing us to put a final confirmation to the mold theory. Lastly, its personality is dependent on the type of tea it possesses. The teapot it lives in does not affect it, so what I'm hearing is, I'm gonna put the finest quality tea into a cowboy boot, throw it into an abandoned hotel, and watch Sinistea go absolutely nuts as it tries to get people to drink from it, which might be an amazing way to get really good money off of really stupid people. Drink from my boot. So cool, we have a Pokemon that actively does mimic things we enjoy in order to feed itself. And theoretically speaking, I guess you could consider it a parasite. It isn't said to actively inhabit their victims, but if you ingest mold and it does manage to grow inside of you, and the mold is Sinistea or Polteageist, as we've kind of proven, then you should theoretically have one of these Pokemon inside of you when you drink them and you die. So do with that information what you will. We have another case of spontaneous generation with Milcery, a Pokemon born when sweet-smelling particles gather in the air. Sure, anything you smell is your nose not just picking up on random air, but actually breathing in particles of whatever it is that you are smelling. But where are those particles coming from for this Pokemon? Well, in Galar, we find them on Route 4 just outside of Turffield, which, despite it being farmland, there's a good chance that with all the crops there could be a faintly sweet-smelling area. Alternatively, they are a hidden encounter in Bridgefield's wild area, but they only appear when it's foggy out, which the same can be said about Giant's Mirror, which is all very strange, especially as normal fog does not and should not have a scent at all, as they're just water particles. We can also chalk this up to whatever smell is in that area is being released and condensed as part of the fog, giving a higher chance to create Milcery potentially. But even then, fairy-type Pokemon seem to have a higher chance of appearing in fog anyway, so it's kind of a major toss-up. It seems more like if we had random encounters available everywhere, that we'd run into a Milcery in a ice cream shop or a bakery, and of course patisseries, as the Dex states, places where these smells are strong and can be very sweet. As for their food, they only try to absorb more sweet smells into their bodies, deriving energy from that and staying healthy by doing this, otherwise they kind of flatten. These Pokemon have also become keenly aware of how to evolve as well, at least being shown in the anime, to actively look for and have the ability to recognize the sweet treat necessary to help it evolve. So with human assistance, a sweet treat, and specific spinning in lefts and or rights of any combination, one of many different kinds of alchemy are created. Also, I love their names. Milcery, Sorcery, and Alcremie, that's so cool. Now, when a trainer gains Alcremie's trust, Alcremie will treat them to berries with cream. The content of Alcremie's cream can become richer and sweeter the happier it feels. Due to the cream it makes being very delicious, many pastry chefs seek to have Alcremie as a partner. The cream is said to have an exquisite taste as a result. Its cream is also said to bring happiness to anyone who eats them. I mean, if it's super rich and delicious, yeah, of course it's going to bring happiness. Though if it is attacked, it will throw a sweet scented cream to distract or blind the opponent in order to escape. The cream's effect is powerful enough to make an opponent soothed and lose the will to battle if they eat it. Which, sure, they're probably attacking Alcremie because they can smell it and they're hungry, so yeah, of course it'll lose the will to battle. It has fulfilled its needs, even though it's empty calories as like maybe a fatty cream and sugar, really, really high sugar more than anything. This actually feels like Milcery and Alcremie have co-evolved though with humanity like domesticated animals. While Pokemon might become a partner for battles, contests, or daily life, or even just pets, not every single one of them could be considered domesticated. But in the case of these Pokemon, it definitely seems as though they have been domesticated, actively choosing to live alongside humans and provide to us as we provide to it, which is pretty cute, I gotta say. This then, of course, comes to a head with the full multi-tier whiting cake that Alcremie G-maxes into. When the cream gets hit by a strong impact, the cream hardens depending on the blow. This allows G-Max Alcremie to be resistant to most physical attacks. Moreover, the decorations on Alcremie's body are as hard as diamonds. When attacking, it unleashes missiles made of cream, each one filled with 100,000 kilocalories, and anyone who gets hit by one of these cream missiles, that sounds really dirty, will be filled with energy and euphoria, that just made it worse, but will become extremely confused and dizzy at the same time. For anyone that might be confused, in the United States, 100,000 kilocalories is the right way to say it, as opposed to how we would say it as 100,000 calories, but with a capital C, as it's effectively shortened to, rather than having the kcal label. So Yeah, that's a pretty significant chunk of empty calories from just creamy sugar. Good luck not getting diabetes, or rather just instantly dying as your body tries to process it, as you effectively dehydrate thanks to the sugars or just get the nastiest kidney stone known to man. Another Pokemon that has definitely been domesticated and co-evolved with humanity are Fidough and Dachsbun. Fidough's smooth, moist skin is firm yet soft to the touch and has elastic qualities. When agitated, it will puff itself up to appear larger in an attempt to intimidate its opponents. Fidough is known to cultivate yeast within its body, which it can exhale through its breath to allow for fermentation. It has long been considered a companion for humanity, helping to enrich the human diet because its yeast is useful for cooking. Enriched flour Fidough. Funny enough though, my fiance has been making bread from scratch, which isn't hard to do, but my brain doesn't fully comprehend it for whatever reason. Give me physics and complicated scientific or forensic mysteries, and I'm good. Ask me to bake, and despite it being a science, I struggle and really have to take my time. Which actually leads me to understanding through her that yeast likes the dark. In fact, it likes the dark so much that if it is introduced to light, they effectively stop multiplying as well. First, I'm going to explain this in the nerdy, sciencey way. Yeast cells contain cytochromes, B, A, and A3 in the respiratory chain. These pigments absorb visible light, especially blue wavelengths, about 408 nanometers, which correspond to the Soret absorption peak. When exposed to moderate intensity visible light, photons can be absorbed by these cytochromes, leading to their photo damage. This impairs electron transport and oxidative phosphorylation, reducing respiration and ATP production. In non-wordy, shorter terms, absorbing the wrong wavelength of light hinders it from breaking down sugars as parts of their bodies are damaged, and going through the entire process of creating energy as a result is hampered. This could then result in your bread not rising in parts of the process. So for whatever reason, Fidough itself doesn't grow. It can inflate itself momentarily, but it must have an organ of sorts within its body somewhere that holds yeast colonies, then allowing them to reproduce and then breathe them out to be used in those bakeries. So of course, it would be protected by people, considering bread is one of the many staples for different diets throughout parts of the world. Though for whatever reason, it evolves into Dachsbun, who is definitely baked bread. I wanted to try and say it was just crusty from age, but nope. When it's exposed to intense heat, Dachsbun's skin will even harden further. This is showcased by its signature ability, well-baked body. Now, don't go freaking out on me now. It didn't slam Fidough into an oven like a football. It likely can naturally evolve just by being outside in the incredible heat of Paldea. All it would have to do is get into some direct sunlight on some of the hottest days, and boom, you have yourself some baked bread. In addition to all of this, Dachsbun's body emanates a pleasant, appetizing aroma, which helps wheat to grow. Thus, Dachsbun is historically treasured by farming villages. The appetizing scent of Dachsbun's body is strong enough to send an opponent's hunger into overdrive. This overdrive sensation eventually can lead to the opponents wearing down their willpower and stamina. So not only has it co-evolved with humanity, it has evolved further to help farmers, and this whole idea of breaking down willpower and stamina through an overdrive of hunger is amazing as a special defense against any creatures that would hunt farm animals in the area, or attack any of their crops. Think of the bugs that it can repel. The closer they get, the hungrier they get. But instead of it just being a psychological response, making them angrier, more desperate, you name it, it genuinely weakens them somehow, as if they haven't eaten for a longer period of time. Maybe some sort of metabolism overdrive, I'm really not sure, but it's phenomenal, and I love the idea behind it. Also, every Dachsbun is a purebred. Don't blame me. Blame Pokemon for that easy pun. We're gonna move on now. Tatsugiri is the strangest case of them if we don't look at its relationship with the Donzo, because of course it's just sushi, which normally would make it no different than us turning Toros into steak, but Tatsugiri itself has turned itself or displayed itself similarly to nigiri sushi. We're going to thank Nobu's restaurants for this, as he shows us how to not only make but also eat it. We're looking at some thin cuts of food. For those with more fat, you're adding more wasabi to balance out the fats with the spice. These are formed with hands traditionally, and for him it takes 6 steps to properly form it with each of the types of fish and shrimp he has prepared for the day. He then places it on a whiteboard thanks to all the different colors in the food, helping them stand out more. But something I want you to notice is the plating of it on a large green leaf on top of that. And then he shows us the use of a little soy sauce, as the sushi should already have plenty of perfect flavor and you don't need extra wasabi either. You are to eat it with your fingers. Dip only the fish part inside of the soy sauce, effectively it is upside down, and then in one bite you place the entire sushi on your tongue and enjoy. I personally love sushi, but have not had proper nigiri. Nevertheless, this is all very important for how Tatsugiri has evolved alongside Dondozo in order to make itself more pleasing to enter Dondozo's mouth. This is because Tatsugiri is noted to be small and relatively weak. I mean, the first thing these things did when I met them the first time was use Memento over and over again. I would find one, it would use Memento. I found another one, it used Memento. And it was my first time playing Pokemon Violet, so I couldn't even catch one before they made themselves faint on move 1. And they were fast. Also, looking back, it definitely feels like they had a personal vendetta against me. Nevertheless, this Pokemon uses its sharp intellect to assess its chances of winning a battle. If there is none, it will flee. In order to overcome its weaknesses, Tatsugiri teams up with Dondozo, which takes it as its boss, following Tatsugiri's orders and providing it with protection and shelter in exchange for a greater chance of catching prey. When hunting, Tatsugiri plays dead or leans into its unsuspecting side to attract potential prey, mainly bird Pokemon, and then commands Dondozo to attack. The interaction between the two Pokemon is so beneficial that Tatsugiri will even clash among themselves in order to get to partner with a particular Dondozo. By comparison, this large catfish Pokemon is, again, massive, powerful, but very stupid, which we should be happy about since otherwise it is an apex predator of the water and would be very dangerous if it was smart at all times. Also, not to gloss over it, but Tatsugiri has not only made itself physically attractive and very bright as a food to entice Dondozo, but also to entice other creatures such as its primary prey being birds, as it's stated. I'd argue this is an incredibly unique adaptation, leaning in both directions with many layers, and it only gets more interesting when we see it mega evolve, which I loved. Running into the slap and dash hyper-realistic sushi in the middle of the restaurant and for it to transform into Mega Tatsugiri. Easily one of the best smaller moments in the DLC. Now, the real Tatsugiri wears a crown of roe or fish eggs, and it is separated from the other two copies via a plastic haran or buran as it may be called. While you often see jagged green plastic in takeout, traditional haran are made from fresh leaves like bamboo or aspidistra, that help preserve freshness and keep flavors from mixing between your sushis, all while the dish it is served on is formed as the Mega Evolution symbol. Mega Tatsugiri's brain has been further enhanced by Mega Evolution, making it exceptionally clever. It can command its copies to assist it in battle and can also solidify the energy from Mega Evolution, enabling it to create its dish and generate an endless supply of exploding row-shaped projectiles. By riding upon its dish, Mega Tatsugiri gains the freedom to move anywhere it desires, including through the air. I'd also say that last portion tells us everything we need to know, because every Mega Evolution has some sort of special trait added on, some sort of desire the Pokemon now achieves, or more so, a desired form they achieve, thanks to its connection with the people around it who spend the most time around it. Hence why we get a roller skating, speedy Hatsune Miku for Mega Lucario Z. Clearly then, Karina loves her Vocaloids. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Now, I really do have to do a video on that sometime soon. It's a really fun thing to explain, but back on track, Tatsugiri no longer needs to team up with other Pokemon as it now has the power it needs in Mega form. It can fly, it can fight, and it is even more intelligent. So when it achieves Mega Evolution, it becomes an incredible predator that now uses aggressive mimicry to its full effect. And now, we might just be on the dinner plate. We're already in our semi-finale with Poltchageist and Sinistcha, Pokemon that are ultimately very similar to Sinistea and Polteageist, but ultimately very different and biologically unrelated, or at least Pokemon likes to say this, but they're both in the mineral and amorphous egg groups, and This then of course means that we have convergent evolutions, something that is in the real world. Long story short, thanks to external factors causing pressure, these forms are taken over many years of real-life evolution that then result in similar but unrelated species of creatures. The greatest example most people are aware of is carcinization, or effectively where a number of creatures have taken the form of crabs. This isn't to say that we're going to transform into giant crab people in 3 million years, but who knows? Give life enough time and the right pressures, and assuming we don't go extinct, blah blah blah, real hyper super theoretical stuff. Theoretically, anything could happen. Scientifically, probably not though. And we still wouldn't technically be crabs, I think. That gets a little confusing, so I'm not going to speak further on that part, and I'm going to ask my more educated biologists in the comments to please let us all know a bit more of this, and I'll get us back on track with these matcha Pokemon instead. According to an old tale, Poltchageist was born from the regrets of an old tea master, who was so obsessed with perfecting the art of the tea ceremony that he drove away everyone around him. Poltchageist is more active at night than during the day, prowling around towns and their outskirts. By day, Poltchageist dwells in cool, dark places, usually in old houses, which is its favorite. It tends to scatter its matcha powder on people and food, and if someone touches or ingests the powder, they will notice their skin apparently glowing for a brief moment before they fall unconscious as their life force is sapped away by the powder for Poltchageist to use as energy. It is capable of draining energy in this way from many people at once. So, matcha is not for everyone. It does have a more earthy, bitter, maybe even grassy taste, as some would say. This is because matcha is a finely ground powder made from specifically grown and processed Japanese green tea leaves. It is unique because unlike steeped green tea, the entire leaf is also consumed. The word matcha translates literally to powdered tea. There's also a bit of a production issue in our world of it, last I checked, because of course it didn't technically get popular, but rather it became part of a fad, and then everyone and their moms is getting it just because they saw someone famous doing it or something. And don't get me wrong, I think sharing cultures is incredibly important. I love sharing, as I'm sure you could tell from this entire channel, but doing it in an appropriate way from a place of understanding, rather than just because some famous gets it, is more important. So now producing proper matcha has become difficult, or it was difficult for a while. I haven't updated myself in like a couple of months here. It's also a bit ironic that Poltchageist would possess the matcha itself, now trying to still perfect itself in the afterlife. This is why it likes dark and cool places and only comes out at night, because the Camellia sinensis tea plants are shaded in near darkness for about 20 to 30 days before harvest. This lack of sunlight forces the plants to overproduce chlorophyll and amino acids, creating the vibrant green color and rich umami flavor. So it's still trying to grow and perfect itself, trying to change, but it seems as though the energy it needs to grow and create more is derived from the need to take energy from others. So it kind of worked out, with the exception that I doubt anyone's going to be able to enjoy the matcha before they pass out based on all this information we've gotten. We do though get a clearer picture upon its evolution, as Sinistcha lives in cool, dark places such as the back of a shelf or beneath a house's floorboards. In the past, it would sneak into houses and pretend to be tea in order to trick people into drinking it so it can absorb their life force. However, because the chawan Sinistcha inhabits had fallen out of use, this act became largely unsuccessful. What just happened in my mouth? Largely unsuccessful, Lord almighty. In recent times, instead of sneaking into houses, Sinistcha roams towns and suburbs in search of prey. It is generally active after sunset and will attack anything that approaches it with a life force draining splash of tea. In order to prepare itself for battle, it builds up its energy by using the chasen on its head to stir itself. So this is a great example of that aggressive mimicry we've been talking about, but it failed to adapt with the times, and as it evolved, had to develop new habits to hunt. So theoretically, it just uses mimicry and then is more of an ambush predator, with humans absolutely being on the menu. Though, not all is bad. It does have the ability Hospitality, which allows it to shower their allies with hospitality in order to heal them. This refers to omotenashi, a concept of Japanese hospitality that was particularly established from the culture of the Japanese tea ceremony, bringing it all back together, as this is all incredibly fitting for a Pokemon introduced to us within the very traditional stylings we see of Kitakami. But how about we move on to one special Pokemon who doesn't look like a food, but actively makes food for us. Pecharunt and Mochi Mayhem, a Pokemon that, while looking like the poisonous pit of a peach, has managed to create mochi that others eat. Pecharunt stores poison in its peach-shaped shell and uses it to create toxic chains and roll up poisonous binding mochi, which are stored in its shell until they are needed. It serves its mochi to Pokemon and humans, but may also shoot them at their mouths if necessary. The mochi draws out their deepest desires and powers, but the ones who eat it become chained to Pecharunt's will, as seen with its caretakers, who had their greed drawn out, the Loyal 3, and honestly Nimona, who still just wanted to fight us. In some cases, the ones that eat it may completely fall under its control, as seen with Milcery Town's residents and most of our team from Paldea. Pecharunt itself is noted to smell incredibly sweet, so I kind of imagine that the mochi could be the same. Humans under Pecharunt's control have purple eyes and are surrounded by a purple aura. It can even command humans and Pokemon to fight for it in battles, capable of controlling many beings at once. It relies on others to fight for it due to its cowardly personality and size. However, it will fight back if it is given no other option. Now, the mochi in Kitakami is flavored with berries, and you are able to create them, those berries being kneaded into the dough. Mochi in general is made by cooking and working glutinous rice or sweet rice flour into a sticky, stretchy dough. Traditional methods involve steaming and pounding the rice, while modern home methods simply heat a mixture of sweet rice flour, water, and sugar in the microwave or on a stovetop. I also personally love how soft and delicate mochi is. There's an international snacks store I very rarely go to, but the very first time I did go there, I grabbed some matcha flavored mochi and matcha flavored Kit Kats. They're small, very properly snack sized, so you have to enjoy them slowly and really take in the flavor, and it makes me have a better appreciation for all the food I eat and how I should be doing that with all the food I eat. There are ultimately all kinds of mochi, peach mochi included of course. In fact, mochi has been a part of Japanese culture since the Jomon period, 14,000 to 300 BCE, when rice cultivation became widespread in Japan. However, in the Nara period, 710 to 794 CE, mochi began to resemble the treat we know today. During the Heian period, 794 to 1185 CE, mochi became very popular among the aristocracy, and people served it during special occasions and celebrations. By the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, mochi had become a staple food in Japan, and various regional variations had developed. Traditional mochi making involves pounding cooked glutinous rice with wooden mallets until it forms a sticky and elastic dough. This process is known as mochitsuki, which people perform during special events and festivals. And this is just making me want to do a video all about mochi for a members only video because I'm just very curious and fascinated. But on track, as such, Pecharunt using mochi as its vehicle to control the minds and hearts of others is a perfect adaptation while representing an ancient snack that continues to be enjoyed in the modern day, something that it has hardly needed to change because of the tastes of the public. But with that then, we have covered why each of these Pokemon have evolved to look like food. It was really fun to dig into more of food on this channel, as I'm a big foodie all in all. I never really get to talk about it in videos, even if this one was kind of shorter. If you did enjoy and would like to see my treasure trove of deep dive videos, subscribe, because I'm sure you'll enjoy it all. In addition, let me know which of these Pokemon you'd eat. I might just say screw it and risk my life to eat an infinite supply of Pecharunt's mochi. Not only do I also love reading your comments as a part of this, but they also help appease the mighty algorithm alongside likes, shares, and hyping the video. I also want to thank members of the channel, as they make a massive difference and help allow me to take the time necessary to make quality videos like this for everyone. If you want behind the scenes info, early access to videos, and members exclusive videos, which now have a total runtime of over 4.5 hours, then you also can have those by becoming a member, and you get early access to videos, so you could have seen this one sooner. Lastly, one of my favorite comments from this past week was from what I assume is Galactic Prom or Galactic Perm, not really sure, but they commented on my video ranking every legendary as a pet, saying, "You're telling me Terrakion, my least favorite legendary Pokemon, is based on the Takim, my favorite animal." I'm so torn right now, which got a good laugh out of me as how ironic it actually is, especially as I personally know nothing about the Takin, so I'm very curious as to why this is their favorite creature in the real world. So go check out that video if you haven't. It's tons of fun, and I might be making the best mythical Pokemon as a pet real soon. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Don't do anything I would do. Please be nice to each other. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!